Good morning, my dear Sri Lankan brothers and sisters. This is Dr. Kalik recording a voice clip on December 20th, 2018. Just like every Sri Lankan, no matter which part of the world we live, we love Sri Lanka and follow Sri Lankan news. I have been following Sri Lankan political situation very closely for last 2 months. Finally, democracy had won due to the patriotic Supreme Court judges. Supreme Court decision to cancel the snap election and convene the current parliament. 2 months of political unrest, billions of dollars lost revenue due to lack of tourism, lack of foreign investment, and foreign investors leaving the country. Most of the politician does not care about it, does not even understand that. What is next? Did we learn any lesson from this political crisis? Even though our constitution is very clear about the power of any branch of government, we still messed it up. It is because elected government bodies lack of knowledge about the constitutional rights. We witnessed the strongest judicial system functioning in Sri Lanka. And also we witnessed nobody about the law, including the executive president. But we still have the crisis. Why? Let's do a postmortem into this crisis, which we always do in medicine when something goes wrong. As you know, after every aviation disaster, aviation authority will do a thorough investigation to prevent further disaster from happening from same nature. Due to the fact air transportation has become the most safest mode of transportation in the world. What happened in Sri Lanka is due to the fact that executive president or most of the elected parliamentarian does not know their constitutional rights simply because of lacking enough education. Every time you go to political rallies in Sri Lanka, politicians always talks about making Sri Lanka as a Singapore. But I do not know how many politicians know how Singapore political system works. If you go to Google and search, you will find out how highly qualified these Singapore politicians are. Most of the cabinet members either PhD holders or master's degrees with a huge experience in their respective field. In Singapore, if you wanted to run for political office, you have to be fluent in 3 languages which are spoken in Singapore: Chinese, Malay, and English. Some political parties even raise the bar. Further, if somebody wants to run for political office in a particular party ticket, the candidate should have a 20 years of public service or social work background. When we look at Sri Lankan system, what qualification we are asking for politician to have it? What I found was all what you need is a Sri Lankan citizenship. But in Sri Lanka, if you want to become a lawyer, you have to have 18 years of minimum education. Same thing applies to engineers, doctors, any civil servant or any government jobs. Now you can see why we went into this political crisis. But the good news is this is a fixable problem. When Parliament met in January 2019, first thing they have to do is to pass a law to honor the judicial system and make December 13th as a judicial day a public holiday. For Sri Lankan to remember this day rest of their life. They have to fix the loopholes in the judicial system to make it even stronger. They have to propose these 5 Supreme Court judges to Nobel Prize Committee to consider for Nobel Prize for the Peace for preventing almost like a civil war in Sri Lanka. To prevent ugly behavior inside the parliament by the parliamentarian that we witnessed in the recent past, they have to amend the code of conduct for the parliamentarian. Parliamentarians should have a dress code when they come to parliament. They have to re-examine the need for executive presidency. In my opinion, small countries like Sri Lanka, there is no need for 2 executive branches like executive presidency and executive parliament. To have a different election separately, we spend billions of rupees taxpayers' money. We can do better without executive presidency. If they really want to have executive presidency, then add vice presidency posts for minority people. Everybody remember, Sri Lanka went through almost 30 years of civil war due to hate speeches and discrimination between ethnic groups. By that, politicians dragged the country into poverty and lacked the development. Sri Lanka almost filed bankruptcy in 1991. Unless we stop these hate speeches and communal riots, discrimination between the ethnic groups, we may end up in another civil unrest in near future. Parliament has to pass the law to stop the hate speeches and communal rioters and discrimination between the ethnic groups. Hate speeches should be punished with a maximum jail sentence. Communal rioters should be punished with a death penalty or lifelong imprisonment. Convicted criminals should be barred from running for public office. Education level for the politician and parliamentarian. To run for any public office in Sri Lanka, a person should have a minimum 18 years of education. Basically, we are asking for college degree or university degree. They should be worked in the public sector minimum 20 years or involved in the public service or social service for 20 years. Make a law. Anybody run for public office should be fluent in all 3 languages, Sinhalese, English and Tamil. Introduce examination for politicians, just like a bar examination for the lawyers and MBBS for the doctors and SLAs for civil servant. Age limit should be raised for 50 and above who wants to run for any political office. Basically, they should have a career before coming into politics, because politics should not be a career to make money. It's a service. Retired civil servants, retired service personnel should be encouraged to coming into politics. Also, the senior citizen with a huge knowledge of good governance experience should be encouraged to getting into politics. Term limit for any public office should be maximum 20 years in total of any nature. President terms should be limited to 2, maximum 5 years each, total 10 years. Prime Minister, total 2 terms, maximum 10 years. No political office after the age of 75. They all should be retired. Anybody running for public office should declare their assets and show minimum 5 years of tax return. We have to strengthen the police force and make them work for public instead of politicians. Political parties with affiliation to race or religion should be banned. Reduce the number of cabinet positions. Each cabinet should have an advisory committee and accountability board. Introduce a law to punish with unpardonable maximum jail sentence for anybody steal public funds or mismanage the public funds. From president all the way down to the normal citizen, no excuse. Abolish presidential power to pardon anybody. Carry out the death penalty for drug dealers. You might think why we need a reform now. Because it is past due and what we have right now is a failed system in Sri Lanka. When British left in 1948, American dollar was trading for 10 rupees and 83 cents in Sri Lanka. As of December 18, 2018, $1 is trading for 184 Sri Lankan rupees. When British left Sri Lanka in 1948, Sri Lanka had hardly any foreign debts. Now Sri Lanka is sitting on $55 billion foreign debts, almost 75% of our total gross domestic product. 95% of the total income of Sri Lanka goes to repay the foreign loans and interest. If we continue the current corrupt political system, I am sure maybe 10 years down the road, dollar may be trading for 500 rupees of Sri Lankan rupee. Sri Lanka may be filing for bankruptcy. Talking about filing bankruptcy is beyond the scope of this talk. It will take hours to explain. Every time any political crisis arises in Sri Lanka, politicians always cry for snap election. Think about the expenditure to hold the snap election. It may be running into billions of Sri Lankan money. Where does that money going to come from? Poor Sri Lankan taxpayers' money. Dear brothers and sisters, why we are not realizing that? Who is to be blamed? Who is the culprit for all these crises? In Sri Lanka, we never corrected our political system. We never raised the bar for politicians' educational qualification. We elected uneducated, uncivilized, unpatriotic politicians into power again and again and again, regardless of their corrupt attitude. They rob the country, push the country into poverty, and divide the country into racial, ethnical lines to their benefit. If we don't fix it now, we will never fix it again. With its current situation, within next few years, we may be slipping into another ethnic civil unrest, pushing Sri Lanka back into poverty and never come out of it. Look around. China, Malaysia, Singapore were much poorer countries when British left. They found their problem immediately and fixed it. They developed fast and developing fast. We have to learn the lesson from past mistakes. You might think this is not my job. If everybody thinks it is not their job, who is going to fix it? The country's corruption will thrive. Country will slip into civil war and poverty will thrive. We do not need to witness another Somalia or Sudan in Sri Lanka. Everybody has one mother and one motherland. Sri Lankan motherland needs a reform now, otherwise never again. It is our time to get into action. Listen and pass on to your brothers, sisters, your friends, party leaders, politicians, parliamentarians, ministers whom you know, prime minister, or even to the president. All what is needed right now is a good president, a good prime minister, and 150 good parliamentarians who think about Sri Lankan future to make it two-thirds majority in parliament. We know there are enough and good number of politicians right now in the parliament who think like me and you. If you make an effort, you don't need much work in the future. They can fix the system in next parliamentary sitting in 2019. Give them a 6 month. If they don't fix the system by June 30th, then we have to organize a political force which will force the political party to listen to our agenda and make a change in 2020. This struggle is not over, dear brothers and sisters. This is like running a marathon. Until you cross the finish line, you are not done yet. Get ready for our generation and future generations' well-being. There is no need for Sri Lankan to run overseas to make a living. Japan is slightly bigger than Sri Lanka, but economically third largest in the world, supporting 126 million people as contrary to 20 million Sri Lankan. If we all get together, we can make it happen. We can make a change. Yes, we can. Happy New Year for all Sri Lankan. God bless Sri Lankan. God bless Motherland Sri Lanka. Thank you for listening.